kind offerings. Hello.
Hello.
That just reminded me of this time when I was I had this crazy job one time. I guess I was about 19, and it was slash burning. Anyone here ever heard of slash burning? Well, yeah. Well, they do these clear cuts, right? And this is up in northern BC, and they do these massive clear cuts, and then they put these piles of logs, old dead stuff that's in these rows, right? And then people go out and they burn these piles. And when you're 19 and stuff, it's pretty cool because they give you or maybe it's pretty cool anytime of however old you are, but they give you a can that's about this big and it's full of jet fuel. And there's a wand on the end of it, and you're just like pouring in the stuff pours out of the end, and there's a wick that's on fire. So you're literally pouring fire on these piles, right? And then if you're doing your job right, then you light these piles up and they burn off. But Mariska came over, just cuddled over and pressed the thing. It just reminded me of one time I had the job in that situation of changing the jet fuel tanks on a helicopter. So sometimes when it's really, really big piles, what they do is just like actually in Vietnam when they like napalm kind of thing in a way, but they would have a helicopter full of jet fuel. So basically a giant version of what I had, but they fly low and they light up these huge piles of slash, right? And so my job was the helicopter would come down and just like hover, and then you have to crouch in. It's really loud, and you have to crouch in and unhook the old tank, and then hook up the other one, and then this thing just takes off, and then just you see it from a distance, and just flame just flies out of this helicopter, just goes scorching down into the earth, and just lights the earth up in flame. Really crazy. And I don't know why I thought about that. But I remember because you're quite low, and I felt like I was in a movie or something. Yeah, that was a crazy summer. I also worked at on a forest fire as a cook. It was like 100 guys, and so what would happen is you're the cook. The guys would the firefighters would get little animals and stuff to save them, and then they would bring them in, and then if natural wildlife people would come and take them away, but they would give them to me in the meantime. So I had a chipmunk living in my pocket for a while. This little chipmunk that would feed little stuff. He would just stay there, and I had a baby hawk that I fed like hamburger and stuff and stuff like that, and then they would take them away. It was a really hot, dry summer. Yeah.
I prefer the second story.
What's that?
I prefer the second story.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we leave a big footprint, don't we? Yeah. It's empty. It's really empty. It's empty in all kinds of ways.
It was for the pop, that's why.
Oh, it's for the pop. Well then, I'll just have to do that, won't I? It's like
empty cup there.
it's like a lounge now.
It's a bar and grill.
It's a bar and grill. Okay, so how's everyone's meditations? You having fun with them? Doing them? Anyone doing them? Yeah, and you know, this sequence of meditations that we're doing in this class, as you know, you can get the audios and you can get the transcriptions. You can flush these meditations out and take a year to do them. You totally could do that and get great benefit, you know. You could cycle through them. You could spend like 7 days on one and then go all the way up to 10 and go back to one again. Or you could spend a good like month on one and then a month on two, because they do build on each other. And they will give you what you need. Yeah, because that's where we're mixed up, right? Is that we generally don't really know what we need. Yeah, we spend, I think, a lot of our time thinking that what we want is what we need. And most of the time, it's not the case. Yeah. So today, we're going to talk a lot about the clear light, or emptiness, you could say. There's lots of words that describe emptiness. But we're going to talk about it in relation to the mind itself. Because the whole purpose of these meditations is that one day you experience the actual nature of your own mind. And once you pull that off, then there's really nothing stopping you from becoming completely free. Until you pull that off, you know, we're just, the way that we're hardwired, we can't help it. Our mind is full of what they call elaboration. So to have a mind that is free of elaboration, really what that means, it's, you know, you'd think it means, oh yeah, a mind that doesn't think, or a mind that is completely, you know, void of concern or something like that. That's not what a lack of elaboration means. In this case, remember, we've done this for a few classes. We talked about how we assume so many things. Like, we assume that the things that we're looking at are as they appear, and that we generally don't even go to the place of realizing that we're painting the picture. We, generally speaking, until you get trained in this kind of way of thinking and the way of being, we just don't. We don't. It's we assume that the people in our lives have certain qualities, positive or negative, and then by these qualities that we experience, we then want to be near those people or want to be away from those people. And we generally don't take the time to think about, well, okay, well, why is it that, you know, I'm so in love with this person and I think they're so great? Why doesn't everyone think they're so beautiful and so great? You know? Or maybe you've been in that kind of a situation where you really, really enjoy somebody, and you got a lot of people around you saying, well, why are you hanging out with this person? This person, you can't trust this person. I always found that confusing myself. Like I grew up always really enjoying people, very interested in people, in all kinds of people. And I think, generally speaking, it was pretty hard to push me to the point where I would say that I don't like you, or it would really hard to do that. And so I had a lot of friends, and I got to be with a lot of people, and I got to enjoy a lot of people, and I always found it confusing if someone did something where there was an instantaneous, judgment, and then that person was immediately ousted, and that person was like, we had a drummer in our band who kind of a funny story, actually. Pretty amazing guy. We had an ad in the paper, we need a bass player. And this guy, I'm not going to say his name, he shows up for a practice, and he's carrying a bass, and he's carrying a bass amp. And he comes down the stairs, and we got a rehearsal space there, and we're all like, 17, and we're all, yeah, we're happening. And he doesn't even know how to plug it in or anything. And so he gets this thing hooked up, and he doesn't know how to tune it. He doesn't know how to play it. But he just showed up, And I was like, yeah, I can play bass. I'm the bass player. And one part of me is like, are you kidding me? But another part of me is like, wow. Like the courage, right? To just do that. I think that was more profound than anything else like we ever did. Was this one guy showing up, just never even played a note in his life, So, but the thing was, that's all we had, so we tried to figure it out. So we're like, okay, put your finger here, put your finger there. We got a gig in like 3 days. Right? Okay, watch John's foot, because he's, he just play whatever his foot goes down, play that note and move your hand around. So he does, and we do this gig, and he plays bass on the gig, and he's like, that's kind of astounding. And then one day, it was a rehearsal, and he was still in the band, and the drummer happened to be absent that day. And he said, well, I'll try drumming. And he sits down on the drum kit, and he says, well, what should I do? What should I do? And someone in the band knew enough to say, okay, put the kick down on the 1, like boom, and hit the snare on the 2. He's like boom, pa, and then hit the hi-hat on the 8. So he's like ch 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 boom, cha boom. Ch. He starts doing that, and he was instantly better than the drummer we had. He was a better drummer, and we're like, what is this guy? Right? So then we had to convince him to sell his bass and get a drum set, which he did. And I always had deep respect for him for just doing that. But he was in a band who actually some of you may know, so I'm not going to say his name, but he ended up being the guy that would always steal the drum machine. And they would find it later at the pawn shop, with his name on it, and then he would say, I didn't take the drum machine. Everybody knew he took the drum machine, right? But I just loved him. I loved him, and so and all kinds of people saying all kinds of things about him. And I found that confusing. I found it confusing that I loved him so much, actually. And I think we should think more about that. Why do we love the people that we love? And I would propose that it's the people that are trying to convince you that you shouldn't love them that have the problem. If you can't reach some kind of like equanimity with your love, then where are you? You're in a world where you're like casting spells in your world. You are deciding who is worthy of your esteem, right? Like you in your lofty, my lofty wisdom has decided that you are less than me, right? Less than me, so you don't deserve, right? You don't deserve. So we have to work that out. We have to work that out. Because working that out is the path to freedom. Like, everything that's happening in your life, whether it's your job, whether it's your relationship, whether it's your past relationships, whether it's your past, whether it's something that you're considering in the future, a position, a relationship, none of it is for reasons that it seems. Because you're not going to get anywhere from attaching a worldly goal to anything that you're thinking of. Because what you ultimately want is freedom from the very same thing you're trying to get. So anything that's going on is an opportunity to figure out how to be completely open and equal with your love. And that's all that's going on. There's no other game in town. That's the only game there is in town. Everything else is just the playing board. And ultimately, you want off the board, really. And the only way that you can actually get off the board is to know how it works. And the only way that you can know how it works is to actually be able to get a glimpse of the nature of your own mind. Because your mind is doing it. Your mind is painting the whole thing. So if you can get a glimpse of how that's happening, you can get off the playing board and into a whole other realm of existence, actually. And the way there is to get in between the thoughts, and some call it the gap, but the thing where your thoughts are arising from. So that leads us into our first meditation. So I was kind of stalling a bit, hoping that she would come, but she's not here yet. Donovan? Where's Donovan? Okay, so someone is likely to come in while we're meditating, so it'll be good practice to stay focused. But she knows to just come in, she'll close the door quietly and sit down. So don't be alarmed if you hear footsteps coming up. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time this time with the basic preliminaries. I'm just going to use the breath at the nostrils so that we can just jump into this meditation. So if you're going to lay down, get yourself laying down. And if you're going to get seated, get your squirrelies out, shake yourself around so you can sit. So if you're lying down, you want to try and feel a sense of a straight line. Some sense of from your heel through the midline up the crown. Those of you who are sitting, taking a bit of time here to relax your body. Waist down. Heavy, relaxed. And then from the waist up, bright and reaching, not reaching, but lifting in an open and relaxed way. And let's get that happening by using our in-breath. And take a nice deep in-breath and expand and lift through the crown, lifting the heart, and then as we exhale, relaxing the shoulders, keeping that nice tall seat with the relaxation happening. Relaxing your eyes. Cultivating that inner smile. Be easy on yourself. You are doing what you need to do. Be easy on yourself. You have not failed. You have never failed. Failure is a label. Another example of a crappy painting. You don't have to paint a label like that with your mind. You can think that anything that's happened in your past up to this very moment and in the future no matter what it has been, will eventually turn into a cause for you to reach your highest freedom. You never know. Something that you may think has been your greatest failure may be the most fuel that you could have that could push you to where you need to go. So just lighten up, relax, smile, and just breathe. You've done everything. Just breathe now. Enjoy your breath. We're going to go right for the breath at the nostrils. So I'm going to ring the bell and just use that tone to ride it out to your final phase of being alert and relaxed. And then shift your mind to watching the breath pass by the nostrils. So now with this relaxed, alert attention, expecting nothing, simply watch your breath as it passes at the tips of your nostrils. Not controlling the breath. Let it be as it is. Using that process to release your hands on the steering wheel, let go of this idea that you can control the moment, and let it be as it is. Use the breath. And now, as in the previous meditations that we've been building towards this, stepping back a little further, so that you really are the observer of the breath. And that may be that you have to move back, like from the front seat to the back seat, and let the breath do the driving. And you're simply watching. You have to be so removed from it that you don't affect it in any way by watching it. It takes relaxation. As you're watching your breath, your consciousness is at the front of your nose. And there's a direct connection to the Ajna chakra, which intensifies your focus. There's a direct connection to your third eye, which intensifies your focus. And there's a connection between this focus at the Ajna and your root chakra. Muladhara chakra, which grounds you. It helps root you to your object, but it's still in the front. So now take your focus to the spot between your eyebrows. And now move in from there about an inch or two and find this crucial point. Find that tiny little pinprick of light. It may appear to you as a tiny diamond radiating light, about the size of a head of a pin. And begin to harness the intensity of your focus at that point. Bring it all to that one tiny point. Now we're going to move this focus. Drop your consciousness down to the back of your heart. And leave yourself there in deep focus. It's like you're falling back into a dream state consciousness. This process of dropping your consciousness down behind your heart, you have to let go. There's something that you need to let go of in order to really seat yourself there. It can feel like you're falling backwards. Just let yourself go. Be at this place, the back of your heart, and watch your thoughts from there. What exactly is an object of thought? You have an awareness of the place that you're sitting right now. It's a visual picture that you can see without opening your eyes. Without even using your eyes. It's just a ripple on the surface of your mind. And actually, it doesn't even exist other than an object of your thought. There's something going on where this image is created. Now let a song arise in your mind for a minute. A song that you know. Let it arise in your mind. some song that you've heard. Can you hear it? It's a song that's never been sung. It's a song that you can hear without your ears. It doesn't even exist. Where does it go when it fades away? So each of your passing thoughts is like a whisper of this song. Which rise up for a split second and then disappears, never to be seen or heard from again. Stay behind your heart and watch your thoughts. Catch their lack of substance. Deconstruct everything that arises, whether it's a thought or a snip of a song, and let it go, and watch how it just fades into nothing. And then even as you are deep in the back of your heart, you realize at the same time that any thought of a body like that or a heart is simply that. It's just a thought, a passing thought. And you can deconstruct your body like that. And you can deconstruct the outside world like that, so you are resting in nothing but mind. When you're ready, you can open your eyes and follow the sound of the bowl out. Remembering to stay centered if you're able as you're opening your eyes, so coming out slowly. So how did you find that, if anybody wants to say, going from kind of up here and then dropping back and down? Does anyone want to have a comment on that or say anything about that? Any experiences that you want to like to share?
Well, it seemed to me that the watcher was in my brain, and as I tried to move the watcher around,
Yeah.
it was reluctant to move. But eventually I was able to get a sense of the watcher being, behind my heart.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I got this idea that thinking is in my head.
Yeah. Very different to come down into here.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. Anyone else? Mariska?
I had the same thing.
Yeah.
I could definitely feel like falling back,
Yeah.
but I felt like I have to keep jumping back down because that's where it wants to go, to my head.
Yeah. When I started doing this type of meditation, I had done many years of focus at the Ajna, right? At the lot of meditating there. And then when I started to do this thing where you drop back and down, I really did have the very visceral feeling. I felt like a balloon. It was full of air that was like trying to push down, and it just kept popping up. I just kept popping back up. It was really surprising to me. Yeah, and then I began to put it together a little bit. How there's an element of how we want to think about things, right? We want to think about things. We want to have our way with things, And to drop back down into the heart, it's a very profound place to be. It's a very different place to be. In Tibetan Buddhism, and I'm sure many other religions too, or if it even is a religion, they say that the mind is in your heart, and that when you do have the experience of getting very, very deep in meditation, you do access this crucial point here, where they say the seat of your universe sits is that place, and you can get there. I remember, this may ring true for some of you, I remember when I was, I had been meditating a long time, and by the nature of your meditation practice, it's like dredging the lake. You're just going to dig up stuff that you didn't even know was there, that you've forgotten about, and it's just going to happen. It's a sign of a successful practice if you embark on it and then you're all enthusiastic, and then all of a sudden things get really weird. You start seeing parts of yourself that you didn't really want to be looking at. Maybe you'll find out that you're like a deeply jealous person. You didn't even know, and then which is good. It comes up, and then you have something to work with. It's like it becomes your project, right? Or you find out that you have low self-esteem, and then you see how that hidden low self-esteem that was way in the background has been the motor, right? Has been the fuel behind all your actions, and then all you've really been trying to do for years is try to deal with and overcompensate for a low self-esteem that you didn't even know was running the show. So what happens when you meditate is all these things that you didn't even know were running the show, you see them, okay? And and then when you make this thing from the head to the heart, an example of that, I think for me, in like a very, I had reached this point where I didn't have anyone telling me that my meditation practice was going to do this to me. It was just happening, and I became very good at meditating, but I couldn't figure out why I was still miserable all the time, and I had a lot of bitterness going on and anger. And I tried all this stuff, and I finally went to a counselor. I just went to a counselor, thinking the whole time that it was pointless. To tell you the truth, it was like my last ditch effort, right? I just like, and I was so self-aware when I went there. I had been meditating, and I knew everything I was doing in the world. Like I was this insane, crazy witness to all my manipulations that I was doing. I was walking through the world with one part of me completely at peace, and the watching this other freaky dude doing all these freaky things that I couldn't actually stop. I couldn't stop it, right? And so I went to this counselor and saying, "This is what I do. I'll do anything for a compliment, for one thing. And if I'm in this situation, I'll suck the juice out of anything to just make myself feel good for 5 minutes, And I started telling her all this stuff, and she was like, "Wow, you're very self-aware. It's amazing. Tell me about your parents." Right? And then it was like she might as well have just like taken the finger out of the dam. I didn't know, that I was really, really angry about some stuff that happened in my past and had gone on, and like when I grew up, when I moved out of the house and stuff, like I never phoned my parents, and I never thought that was weird. And when I did, I couldn't breathe. I would be like, and I never thought to wonder why, right? And I'm not trying to place blame here. I'm just trying to say what I found in me. And then so what would happen is my counseling sessions just turned out to be, I would walk in and yell and scream and swear and kick the air for like half an hour, and then calm down. And I would go in there, and every time I went, I didn't want to go, and every time I went in the elevator all the way up, my mind was going, "This is stupid. This is stupid. This is pointless. You're wasting your time. Why are you going here? She doesn't know anything. You know more." But I would some part of me had the sense to drag me in there. And I would go in there, see her cute little face, she'd say a couple words, and then I would go off. And then when I was done my session, she would have to give me like a 5-minute warning. Right? Okay, 5 minutes, and then I would come back to, and I would think about like the other people in the hall and wonder what they heard, and But then I would go down and sit in my old pickup truck, and I couldn't drive. I was completely there's no way that I could drive. But I felt very real, And I think for me that was my first experience of dropping from thinking about everything and just being with what is, like just being with what the reality is. And and I remember sitting in my truck going, "Wow, this feels really good." Just to feel honest for a second, I just felt honest. Like, man, I got some big problems, but God, it feels good to know it. Yeah, and I think for me that was the turning point. I had done enough meditating to finally just accept that I had some problems, right? And from then on, I could then associate more with dropping back and being down in the heart. Because in order to be back and down in the heart, you have to relinquish some control. You may have felt that in your meditation, where you relinquish some control and let things be as they are. Because what we want to be doing is training ourselves to not only go from here and then get back down, but to stay there and be the observer, so that you can train yourself in your everyday waking life to be sitting there as the observer, then you have more capacity for forgiveness. You have more capacity for not overlaying the whole situation with a bunch of insane stories. And what we're trying to do is get there so that we can notice the spaces between the thoughts. And there is space there. We just have to open it up. So in the kind of meditation that we just did, the object is your mind. The object is not the sound, and the object is not your thought. So you're not actually doing meditation properly if you allow yourself to jump into the story of the thought. Then you're actually doing a different kind of meditation. You're not doing what we're attempting. If you go into the sound and then lose yourself in the sound and start thinking about the sound, then you're actually off your object. Because your object, we are trying to have the object as the mind itself. And in order to do that, I know that some of you had mentioned this last week, and you're going to experience this if you haven't already, is that it's a little tricky to be the watcher of the watcher. And you may have to keep going back to get a seat there. You may have to go. You may have to be the watcher of the watcher of the watcher until you finally get back far enough that you can actually have a sense of being an observer, because most of us are living our life with our face up against the glass, right? Yeah, and we just have to pull back and pull back. And being behind the heart is helpful for that, because you're entering into a different state, a whole different state of being, really. I read in a book once that they said the longest journey, or the longest and hardest journey you'll ever make is from your head to your heart. You know, and really, it's the only one worth taking. You know, and that ties into what I was saying earlier, right? Everything that's happening in your life is your journey from your head to your heart. You know, whether you're trying to figure out why your relationship is falling apart, or whether you're trying to figure out whether you should take that next job, you know, or someone's asking you for help. Someone asks you for something, and someone asks you for something, and you have this moment of resistance because what about me? What am I going to get out of it? It's not about, in a way, it's not about whether you give this person what they are asking for or not. It's about the moment that you notice that you don't want to. And then so you can adjust. You say, okay, wait a second, How can I give? Because that opens your heart. So there's many, many meanings of the word Mahamudra. But for our purposes today, Maha means great in Sanskrit. Mudra means a seal. It's often thought of as the Great Seal. And you can think of it as like a capsule or an enclosure, or putting a mark on something, putting a stamp, like a seal on something. And so what the idea here, by getting to the place where you can get between your thoughts, is to see the emptiness of your own mind. Which then knocks over the emptiness of everything else. Now, you remember a few classes back we talked about this certain kind of refuge, which was taking refuge in karma and emptiness. So, getting to a place where you understand that I am putting the label, I am putting this label on whatever I see, whatever it may be, right? Like, for instance, a song. Someone plays you a song and you don't like it. That's kind of an easy one. Okay, I am putting the label on a song, not such a great song. Someone comes up to you and they want to borrow $100. That could be anything. That could be a gift, or that could be a big pain in the butt. Some people are going to think of that as an opportunity. Some people will think of it as a big pain in the butt. But the people in our lives, they're the hardest ones. They're the hardest ones. The people in our lives are the ones that we think are giving us the most pleasure and the most pain. So, if we can truly get this understanding that I am labeling this person, I am being forced to label them because of however I have loved or not loved in the past. And not any other way. It's all inclusive. It's either, I look at this mansion and I see a beautiful house that I would like to live in, and aren't they lucky? Or I see a great big waste of space and a whole bunch of dead trees, and what are they going to do in there? Right? Either it's just an object. It's just an object. That is Mahamudra. That is placing the seal of your understanding of karma and emptiness on everything that you experience in your life. So, I'll just give you an example. So, if you walk into a store and you have in your mind that, let's say, you want to go into a store and you want to buy something. Maybe you want to buy a memory stick. You're going to go to Staples and you're going to buy a memory stick. And you have in your mind, I want an 8 gig memory stick and I want it to be on sale. I don't want to spend $20 on the memory stick. I want it to be on sale. I want it to be like half price when I go in there. And I only want to spend, $8 on this memory stick. And you walk in there, and they've got all kinds of memory sticks. They got lots of them for 8 gig, but they're all $30. and you walk in there. Now, if you have Mahamudra going in your mind, if you have, I understand where things are coming from in your mind, I understand that I have created every scenario in my life, then you're going to look at all these things that you're going to contemplate the memory stick that's not there that you wanted, and think to yourself, well, I guess I didn't supply people with things they needed. I didn't give enough. When someone needed my help, I didn't give it to them. I wasn't free with my belongings. I held my stuff, or anything. Someone wanted a ride, I said no. And if you walk in there and you see, wow, they got a great sale on 8 gig memory sticks. It's only $4. And then you think, wow, what a great store. That's not Mahamudra. That's elaboration. That's a story. Wow, London drugs, they're so awesome. Right? It's not that. It's the fact that you supplied people in the past with the things that they needed. You made it easy for stuff. You made it easy for people to do what they needed to do. You made it easy for someone to get to point A to point B. You went out of your way or something like that. So that then planted a seed in your mind. Because what's happening is, what we're trying to get a glimpse of in our meditations is the crystal-like, ineffable quality of the mind that is constantly checking out what you're doing. It's always on. It's always on. So when you're by yourself, it's always on. Right? It doesn't matter if anyone found out that you cheated on the test or not. You know that you cheated on the test. And that's all that matters. It's like that famous story that often gets used in Tibetan Buddhism. Is the guy who robs the bank, right? The guy who robs the bank gets 100 grand, steals 100 grand from the bank, and flies off to some tropical island and lives out the rest of his days in a beautiful place, has servants and whatever, lives the rest of his days out in a lawn chair. And because it seems like this life of leisure that this man created for himself came from stealing, but there's a time gap between what we do and what comes back. So, and that is the crippling illusion, because our mind is always watching. You go in and steal money from someone, that gets stored over time, over lifetimes. This little drop of essence in your heart that you're trying to access is been with you for time with no beginning. It knows everything about you that you've ever done, and it replays it back to you in whatever way that it can, so you get what you have coming all the time. But sometimes it takes 2 lifetimes, 10 lifetimes, or a year, or a day, or a week. That's also empty. That also has no self-nature when it comes. There's no fixed formula. So if you can embrace a few rules like good comes from good, bad comes from bad, then if you want some money, you won't try and steal it, because you'll know that that's not how I get things. I get things from actually giving to people. That's actually how we have gotten anything. So we should rejoice because we live in this paradise. We've obviously been very, very good in our past. So if you think about that enough, you can get to this place where you experience the rise and the disappearing of your thoughts and understand the whole time that you're not in control of those things. They are your mind giving it all back to you. Okay? It's giving it all back to you. So, if you do that enough and convince yourself enough, then you'll just simply start being kind to others, no matter what. Because then you will have real refuge, because you will know that when someone is screaming at you, you made it. And then you won't yell back, because you'll know that yelling back is just going to bring more. Hard to do in the moment. It takes a lot of practice. And you can get so good at it that when someone's yelling at you or is doing something quote unquote unpleasant, you can get so good at it that it can feel like you're taking a lighter and burning off old stuff that you've done. You're like, oh, thank you for yelling at me, man. Thank you, finally. Finally. Whew. It can be like that. It can be like that. You can get your mind can get so pure that you can be driving in traffic and someone cuts you off and you get irritated and you go, cool, man, I'm irritated. I haven't had that for a long time. Thank you person for cutting me off. That one's done. That one's gone. So, that takes us to, as you're doing your actions in the world, they call that it's a Tibetan Buddhist lineage or Tibetan, they often use the word ritual, right? Your ritual. Well, often what that simply means is your physical actions in the world. What is your ritual? What is your ritual? Do you pay the rent on time? Right? Is that your ritual? Right? Or are you always 2 weeks late? Is that your ritual? How do you present yourself to the world is your ritual. So, if your ritual is to act like a bodhisattva, and you which is like walking around trying to make sure everyone's okay, and you see a person lying on the street, and it's in the middle of the winter, and they're kind of huddled up in a blanket, and they look cold to you. I'll use a different example. Let's say you're walking down the street and you have a nice warm coat on. It's in the middle of a Vancouver winter, and it's just wet and cold, but you have a nice parka, nice warm, waterproof, windproof jacket, and you're very cozy. And you think it's the jacket. You think the jacket is what's keeping you warm. But that's impossible. It only seems like the jacket's keeping you warm. What's keeping you warm is you keeping other people warm before. So if you know that, you got this nice jacket on, you see somebody laying there with a sign out, anything helps, food please, and they're sitting down there and they are shivering. And you take off this jacket that is supposedly keeping you warm, and then you say, here, have my beautiful jacket so that you can be warm. And you know the whole time that this jacket was never keeping me warm from its own side. It's not a self-existent object that keeps me warm. And that by giving this jacket to him, or this person, then, I'll go home and my hydro won't get cut off. Or the furnace will stay on. Or the hot water won't run out. And as you take it off, and maybe you feel cold for a second, you're like, whew. Then you have to get so good at it that it's continual. You go, well, I'm not cold right now because I took my jacket off and gave it to that guy. I'm cold for other reasons. Because you've probably noticed that there are days when you can walk around and everyone's wearing a coat and you're like, what are you guys wearing a coat for? Or vice versa. You're like shivering and everybody's in a t-shirt. So that's like the great seal of where things are coming from as you offer this jacket. And then so to go a little further, because your goal is to get off the playing board, which ultimately means get out of the cycle of you could say highs and lows, cycle of pain, cycle of mental suffering. That includes your mind and your body. So then you want to take your perception of your body and turn it into a perception of a different kind of a body, a different kind of a speech, a different kind of a mind. You want to transform it into the body and the speech and the mind of a totally enlightened being. And the only way that you could possibly do that is if it was void, if it was empty of being self-existent. If your body and your mind and your emotions and your feelings were how you thought they were, if you are who you seem to be, then they could never change. You could never not be angry. You could never stop being happy if you're happy, right? You could never change at all. You couldn't change. But because of the truth that everything you're perceiving is your mind giving it back to you, if you then give in the world with that awareness, what happens is the mind reflects back to you like a million times stronger than just simply giving the coat, without knowing why you would give the coat, without knowing why you would be warm or cold. Because your mind reflects everything. If you conjure up these kinds of thoughts where you're thinking these kinds of things, you're moving yourself towards thinking like an enlightened being. And so eventually the mirror of your mind reflects back to you enlightenment. And it's forced upon you, just like being cold or warm is forced upon you. If you're cold, you can't just think warm. It's forced upon you. And if you're in the middle of some upheaval in your mind, we can't just turn it off. It's happening. So you can, in that very same way, have constant joy, constant love, happy every single day because of what you put in your mind. And so that's Mahamudra-ing everything. That's Mahamudra-ing your life by as much as you possibly can. Every second counts. They say that every movement of your mind is like 65 perceptions in one finger snap, making your whole reality seem like a seamless movie. So if you go out of your way to help somebody, That's a lot of perceptions per finger snap of thinking, in order for me to create an enlightened body, speech, and mind, so that I can then be of great service to all beings, to all humanity, everyone around me, that will turn it into that wish. Just exactly like if you're experiencing a negative thing and you just simply think of it in that way. If I didn't have the causes, if I didn't have the cause in my mind for this to happen, it couldn't happen. It couldn't. It's impossible. It's impossible. That's how it can be that you can walk into a chaotic situation and be totally untouched by it. And where somebody else, you can be on. I've been in this situation so many times. You're in a traffic jam, and you're just like chilling out, and the guy beside you is just like freaking out. Right? Same situation. Right? If you don't have the causes to suffer from a traffic jam, you can't. You actually can't. It's impossible. You can't even summon it up. Right? So, if someone comes up to you and decides, you hear them saying things, you hear like words, you hear sounds, you hear syllables, their mouth opens and closes and out comes sound, and you hear insulting words, they say things to you like, you promised that you'd be a better person for me. When is that going to happen? If you were different, right? If you were different, I'd be happy. If you were a different person, I'd be happy. And then, if you hear that, and then start freaking out, and going, wow, I am such a schmuck. You have done that to somebody. You have made people feel like crap. The only way that you can feel like crap is if your mind throws it back at you. And we all have made people feel like crap. So that's how you empty that out of your mind. How you drain your mind, how you suck out the poison of your mind, is when somebody is making you feel like crap, you just sit and say, thank you. Thank you. Finally. It's over. It's over. Maybe it's the last one. It's over. Because you understand that you made it. Now that is freedom. There's nothing else. Nothing else will give you freedom. Nothing will. I beg you to understand that nothing will. You can try. We have tried. You can try any other way to get your brain involved and try and manipulate the situation, and maybe you'll feel good about it for half an hour. But it will come back to haunt you. The only way that you can do it is by draining the causes out of your mind, and that's the only thing that's going to work. And that can be hard. Because sometimes that means you have to go through a shitstorm. Excuse my French. That's not French, is it? A storm de marde. That's not French either? I just stopped trying. Right? And so, when we do these meditations, it gives us a hope of being able to catch it as it's coming up in the mind. You son of a... Whoa. Right? How dare you... Whoa. Right? Because then, it won't matter after that. Then it's just you flip the coin. You're no longer relying on others for your happiness. In fact, it's the opposite. You're just running around trying to make everyone else happy all the time. And it becomes like you change into this weird person who's like, has no self-concern, right? Because your self-concern has become everybody else because you've made this connection in your mind. Everyone in my world is the future me. However I treat this person is my future. You know? You are my future. Then so I better treat you like that. I better treat you like you're my future. Because you bloody well are my future. Those are just the rules. They don't need you to understand them. They're just the rules. It doesn't need you. Your mind doesn't need you to know that. It just will reflect that. So when you get some kind of inkling of how that works, you can do something about it. You can actually succeed at something. You know? You can actually succeed at something. Real succeed. Real success. There's only one successful career. There's only one. You know? And that is to become a holy lover of all people. That is the only successful career. And you can become that journeyman of love by, you know, you can have all kinds of jobs. You can be doing all kinds of things. You can be a mom, you can be a farmer, you can be an accountant, right? You can, you know, be homeless. Those are all just the ways that you actually pull off the real success. All those other things, it doesn't matter whether you like make a hit record. It doesn't matter. Those things don't matter. All that matters is what was in your heart at the time you were doing anything. That's it. That's it. That's it. Everything else is just fluff. So what we're going to do is we're going to meditate again to try and get that gap happening. And we're going to pretty much do the same meditations. We're going to do a nice sandwich of the same thing to finish off class. And if you need to shake your legs out or anything like that to get yourself ready. Yeah, let's cool it down. Hey, the stick isn't there. The stick. Yeah, let's I think we'll open up the back door too, just so we'll get some wind going in here for a second. Cool it down. Okay, that's good. Let's do this. So get into your meditation pose, whether it's lying down or sitting up. Use the sound of the bowl. Bring your mind to its sound and then follow it to the silence when the sound ends. So focusing on your breath, beginning the observer process by starting with the breath, watching the breath as it passes the nostrils. There's something about placing your mind at the tip of your nostrils that is connected to the root chakra, that helps you ground and stay focused. Simply watching. Observing the breath. Try to notice any desire or anything that comes up in your body or mind that wants to have some influence over the breath. Just let it be however it is. And now shifting that breath focus to that pinpoint of light. So take your mind to the spot between your eyebrows, focus there for a few seconds, and then bring it back about a couple inches inside your head, and as best you can, place all your focus onto a tiny pinpoint of diamond light. And relative to the focus at the tip of your nostrils, focusing on this Ajna chakra, your third eye, also has a mysterious connection to your Muladhara chakra, your root chakra, helping you ground, focus, stay focused. And now we're going to make that big leap, that big dive down and back. So you can picture it like the pinpoint of light actually traveling back and down and landing in your heart. That may help. So that your mind then becomes, your focus then sits at the back of your heart. So now what will help is thinking more of your back body even will help, so that you can sit back more. And this can be very much like you're falling back in that state in between awake and sleep. Keep staying at this place of the heart as if your center was right there. And then from this place, begin to watch your thoughts. And you can start by having that visual picture of the place that you're sitting right now in your mind. And then try and sit back even more by becoming the watcher of the watcher. Who is watching those thoughts arise? The mental image of the room that you see with your eyes closed. Then start thinking about your body in this room. The mental picture you have of your body, you don't even really know what the back of your body looks like, but you have a mental picture of it. Try to sit back far enough that you can be the watcher, that watcher state of mind, the watcher of the watcher. You're trying to get so passive about what you're seeing in your mind that you're stepping far enough back to be the observer of the one that is experiencing the mental image of your body. And just staying there as thoughts come and go about your body. Like watching clouds form and disappear in the sky of your mind. Consider that your mind that you cannot directly experience the way that you think that you could experience it is providing the space for everything to happen. The ripples across your mind, any thought that you may have, any sound that you may hear, your mind creating the space, the pure potential for it to happen. And it has no investment. In the object, in the sound, in the thought. It merely provides it with a way for it to become and go. There's something about sitting back and focusing down in the heart area that allows us to access this sky-like mind and see it in a way that cannot be called seeing. If you follow the sound, you've lost the object, because what you're trying to do is be with what's between. Trying to be there, fully present, when the thought about the sound arises and goes. Trying to be there, fully present, as the ever-changing perception of however you experience your body rises and falls again and again, creating your experience of what you know as your body. All made possible by the sky-like quality of your mind. So trying to remain nice and soft and centered in your heart as I ring the bowl, and just follow that sound back into the room as you gently and slowly open your eyes.